Welcome to Retail's Most Wanted, the podcast that examines the latest issues related to organized retail crime and how retailers and policymakers are fighting back against today's organized crime syndicates. Coming up on today's show, we'll be joined by James Russell, a supervising special agent for the case strike force with the Utah Attorney General's office. But first, a quick message from our sponsors. Retail's Most Wanted is brought to you in partnership with the Attorney General Alliance, where U.S. State Attorneys General collaborate on emerging legal issues and the rule of law at home and across borders. Learn more at agalliance.com. Retail's Most Wanted is brought to you in partnership with LVT, securing physical environments through intelligent automation. Learn more at lvt.com. That's lvt.com. The case strike force, or Crimes Against Statewide Economy, was formed 4 years ago to tackle the rising issue of organized retail crime here in Utah. This coalition of major retailers with dedicated funding and coordinated partnerships has made significant strides in addressing the surge in brazen thefts. Today, we'll hear insights into their work, their ongoing challenges, and the strategies that have proven effective in their fight against ORC. We welcome in our guest, James Russell. He is the case strike force member for the Utah Attorney General's office. James, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you.
All right, let's start here. Tell us the scope of what the case strike force investigates and prosecutes. What do you guys go after?
So we primarily work on organized retail crime, which is, individuals who are stealing for profit, and then their counterparts, the offenses. But we also deal with intellectual property issues. So if counterfeit products being sold online, those kind of things. We have a small niche where we deal with catalytic converter theft, and really anything where a business is a victim in a case.
Mm-hmm. We talk organized retail crime with people from across the country, including folks from their respective attorney general's offices. I wonder if you could give us some kind of quantification, because we see so many of these videos and they seem to all come out of like California or Portland. When it comes to organized retail crime, how significant is the problem in Utah?
Right. Well, certainly we are not to the levels of California and some of our surrounding states, but it's still a pretty significant impact. It's happening on a daily basis in most retailers. It's not uncommon for retailers to deal with 2 to 3 thefts a day. So if you add that up across the board of all the retailers, there's actually a study out there that shows in 2021 that Utah lost roughly $500 million in product out the door. So that kind of gives you an idea.
Yeah. $500 million here, $500 million there. It starts to add up after a while, right?
Absolutely, yes.
All right. So tell me about what kind of merchandise is usually taken from these stores. Are we talking stores where it's high-end products? Is it a good mixture of stuff? Are they just trying to grab what they can get to most easily? I imagine this is driven in part by what they can flip and get the money back in as a source of revenue.
Right. Yeah, anything that you can get a pretty decent value out of is going to be stolen. And it kind of changes a little bit because retailers are then starting to focus on those high theft items, and so they're changing a little bit. But anything from tools to vacuums, KitchenAid mixers, to clothing, and even we've dealt with the diabetic test strips and medical supplies.
That's really interesting that it's everything from medical supplies to tools. That's a pretty broad spectrum. And then you're saying at about $500 million in a year, no small amount of theft going on here. It sounds like this is more, though, than a single person obviously stealing a single item. When we're talking organized retail crime, they're not sending in one person at a time to kind of get what they can and walk out. How difficult are the investigations and prosecutions in these cases, because you have folks who are doing this in an organized way and really sounds like, by the number you gave me, being very effective with it?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely difficult, especially to catch the more organized ones, the smarter ones who have a process that know what they're doing. Because in any given instance, they're really, even if they're caught, they're only caught with a small amount of stuff in comparison to what they're actually doing oftentimes. So what we do is try and compound all of those together and make them into one large case. But it's not easy, and we have to prove a lot of things in these.
When you're talking about that individual, this is an interesting point to me. You arrest an individual who's stolen something or some big ticket items, tried to get as much as they can, or a group of people that have done that. How do you take it from the level of we've apprehended someone who was at the point, boots on the ground point of this theft, and then connect them to sort of a larger organization? Because I'm guessing what you want is the bigger fish, right? You want to go after the organization and not just the individual who, maybe is part of this organization because they want to be, and maybe because they've kind of been forced into it.
Right. Yeah. The closest comparison I have would be similar to like a narcotics case, where we start with the small fish and work our way up. I don't want to give away too much as far as how we do that, but that's through a lot of conversations with retailers and figuring out who our main players are, and then surveillance, and other methods, buying things from people online, any number of things that we can do to try and monitor what's going on, to watch that those thefts occur and then watch those transactions take place.
Yeah, definitely don't want you to give away any trade secrets just to make it easier for someone to get away with this. So you've got individuals who you apprehend. You're trying to kind of aggregate all that. What types of charges do the suspects typically face, and are the penalties at the appropriate level in your view?
So for us, we generally deal in what would be second-degree felony range. So anything over $5,000 in total value is what we generally deal with. But like I say, that's compounding over time. So oftentimes it's $100 here, $500 here, $1,000 there, till we add all of that up. And then in terms of, are we getting enough out of those charges? I would say certainly, it's frustrating to lock someone up and then they are out the next day. So in those kind of terms, no, we're not getting maybe what I'd like to see. But at the same time, we've been really successful with some restitution issues, and with dealing with trying to, I think we're at least tamping down the problem.
Yeah. When you talk about aggregation of charges, how does that work on the legal side? I really just don't know. I would love for you to kind of explain it to me. All right, you arrest an individual as part of some type of ORC operation, right? But maybe they only stole $200 worth of tools, for example. Do you work on prosecuting that, and then the next they sort of go do their time or whatever the punishment may be on that, and then they come out and they are a repeat offender? Do you get to add the second offense to the first offense, or is the first offense done in that case? And so do you have to wait and kind of let them aggregate? I don't understand the blocking and tackling of that.
Right. So aggregation happens before we charge. So we can't aggregate after. You can do enhancements after. So if someone has committed a felony level offense in theft, they can actually, their next crimes can be enhanced. But that's different than aggregating. So aggregating is generally where, and it's almost always, we have to be in good relationships with the retailers who are saying, hey, this guy's a problem. And not only has he stolen from our store here in Salt Lake City, but he's also stolen from St. George and from West Jordan and Logan. And so we have 10 thefts on this person across the state of Utah. We then take all of those thefts with their evidence. Normally it's going to be video evidence and reports from their asset protection people, and combine all of that into, and then we can aggregate that dollar value for the higher theft value.
Gotcha. So in other words, it's that you have caught the perpetrator once, but then can go back and aggregate all of the numerous times they may have done something to go as part of that.
Right. And maybe not even having caught them, but at least identified them so that we can put all of that together.
Okay. So you're sort of aggregating the evidence. You're starting to put together all the pieces. And then when you get them, hey, they may have been busted this time for stealing some kind of power tool from Lowe's, but you've got them on 10 other instances where they've actually gone and done this. But by the time you get them, you're getting them for all of those.
Right, exactly.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. I appreciate that. That's really helpful clarification. I think certainly for me, probably for our audience as well. I'm wondering then, how has the concentration of effort from the case strike force made a difference in the losses retailers are experiencing at this point?
Well, and those numbers are really difficult to come by. But anecdotally, I can say that in dealing fairly closely with a number of retailers, we've had retailers who have told us that oftentimes they'll have a goal level for shrink in their stores, and we're able to stay at level or below level at a number of these retailers, where across the country, maybe that's not quite the case.
Yeah. So really making a difference then. Overall, I wonder, how has organized retail crime evolved in the time you've been working in this area? And what is most pervasive right now? Like, what's the trend that you're seeing?
I think when I first started into this realm, it was more local. So it was more your local narcotics users who are the ones who are stealing. Now that's certainly still going on, but we're seeing a lot more of the traveling crews nowadays. So they're coming from, especially from Southern California, and they'll drive up the I-15 corridor and hit stores along that corridor. And they'll make it up through Idaho and then back down into California, with the end goal of getting it to a fence there in California. That's one of the big changes that I'm sure it was occurring before, but I think that's where any increases would be coming from.
How important is video surveillance to combating organized retail crime? And are there arrests and prosecutions that are driven by that video surveillance? And how significant, I guess, is it of a deterrent are the pieces of video evidence you have, or the video surveillance overall?
So video evidence I want to say it's almost mandatory. We almost have to have video evidence, especially for things that we don't on view. So if you don't see it and it's not on video, how do I prove it happened?
Yeah.
So we really have to have video evidence in order to make these cases.
Yeah. How has the video gotten better, right? Like it starts probably just with stores kind of monitoring somewhat of what's going on within the stores. Has that evolved or gotten better over the last several years? And how has that made a difference?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, especially when I started in my career, everything was VHS tapes, which would degrade in quality. And normally, they would put the cameras way up in the far corners, and you might be able to tell like what color shirt they had, and that was about it. Nowadays, they're much more concentrated on areas where theft are occurring, and just better quality video. And then the storage capacity for video is certainly, and the ability to share video across, the internet rather than having to actually go in person to pick the video up is also a game changer.
Yeah. Do you see, this may be sort of an off the wall question, but I wonder, as every business and every sector is adopting more artificial intelligence, have you seen yet the impact of how artificial intelligence can work with the video to understand, pick out patterns or help you make connections there? Or are we still just sort of on the very beginning tip of that?
Yeah, I think we're really on the very tip of that. I've not seen any cases where I've been able to actually witness AI actually having an influence. But it certainly makes sense that they can pick out patterns. And I'm sure that that would not be too far out before we're actually seeing those kind of cases.
All right, I'm going to get you out of here on this. What should consumers know if they see someone stealing merchandise from a store? What do you want them to do?
Well, certainly, first off, don't intervene. Too many people have been hurt by intervening in these kind of cases. But be a good witness, and if you can, this video is awesome. So if we can get license plates, especially because those help us to identify suspects, that's always good. But I wouldn't put yourself out there. It's just stuff in the end. So I wouldn't really put your life in danger for it. But just be a good witness. and
Yeah.
then be willing to share that information to us.
Yeah, work with law enforcement. Don't try to take their job in the process, is what I'm hearing.
Right.
All right. James Russell from the Case Strike Force in the Utah Attorney General's office has been our guest. James, thank you for your work fighting back against organized retail crime, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, that's it for this episode of Retail's Most Wanted. Thanks to our presenting sponsors, LVT and the Attorney General Alliance. Don't forget to hit that subscribe or follow button so you can catch each episode. We drop a new one 3 times a month. We're also on X, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Links are in the show notes below. Thanks so much, everyone, for being with us, and keep up the good fight.